Hey guys, Ross here from Biker Talk and welcome to another bike review. This time on a bike that any ton-up boy would love to ride, the Euro 5 version of Royal Enfield's Continental GT. So my better half Amber rides a Continental GT, the Euro 4 version. So we thought we'd jump on the bikes and head up to the Blue Mountains for a coffee, a toastie and some homemade ice cream at the On the Soul Side of Town Cafe in Katoomba. And before anyone mentions it in the comments, yes I know I'm batting way above my average. So, some things have changed in the new version of the Continental GT to make it Euro 5 compliant, but honestly, not a lot. It's still got that wonderful fuel-injected 648cc air and oil-cooled parallel twin that puts out 47 brake horsepower at 7,150 RPM, with maximum torque of 52.3 Newton meters at 5,250 RPM. The suspension is taken care of by 41mm forks that have 110mm of travel, with twin overcoil shocks on the rear that have 88mm of travel. The brakes haven't changed. They're the same bi-brake calipers with a 320mm disc on the front and a 240mm disc on the rear, with dual-channel Bosch ABS as standard. Now, the tyres on this version are the Seat Zoom Cruise tyres sitting on 18-inch rims. According to the manual, tyre pressure should be set at 32 psi on the front and 36 psi on the rear if you're riding solo, but you'll need to up the rear to 39 psi if you're carrying a pillion. But this is another bike that's not really designed with a pillion in mind, which to be honest suits me just fine. It weighs 211 kilograms wet, has a 12.5 litre fuel tank and a seat height of 820 mils. Now, I've seen a bit of debate online recently about servicing and which oil to use. Royal Enfield recommend using a fully synthetic 10W50 grade oil, and I really don't see any reason to stray from that advice. In Amber's bike, I use Penrite, which is a great Aussie company and it's readily available where I am, and is also the oil that my local Royal Enfield dealer, Motorcyclo, recommends. I have used Silcoline with the same specs, but to be honest, I really didn't notice any great difference. And if anything, it runs a bit better on the Penrite. If you're doing an oil change, it should take 3.1 litres according to the manual. I've done 2 oil changes at home and it takes pretty much exactly that, give or take 50 mils. In terms of servicing, the manual states to change the oil and the oil filter every 12 months or 10,000 Ks, and clean or change the air filter every 5,000 Ks. But oil is cheaper than replacing an engine, so I do an oil change and an oil filter change every 5,000 Ks at the same time I'm doing the air filter. Then I'll take it to my local Royal Enfield dealer for its annual service, at which point inlet and exhaust valve clearances are due to be inspected and adjusted if necessary. There are 5 new colourways for the Continental GT and the pricing in Australia starts from $11,290 for Racing Green and Rocker Red, $11,590 for Ventura Storm and the version I had to review, Dux Deluxe, and $11,890 for the uber cool Mr. Clean. Apart from the new colourways, Royal Enfield have made some other changes, mostly so that the new versions are Euro 5 compliant. There have been some changes in the design of the camshaft, the cat, magneto rotor and wiring harness, as well as some brand changes to some other components. But probably the most important feature to any potential new owner is the new stitching in the seat, which does make it just a little bit more comfortable. But please, Royal Enfield, next time use whatever foam you've used in the seat for the Meteor, because that seat is seriously comfortable. So all of these changes haven't really made a massive difference in the new version of the Continental GT, but maybe a better rider than me might be able to spot some differences. And with that, it's over to Amber. Did you notice any changes in the new version to the one you're riding, the Euro 4 version?
Mine's blue and a lot louder. But seriously, the seat was quite a bit more comfortable than mine, but I did notice that the power was down a bit.
Yeah, so on that, the power, very early on Amber's bike, we added in a DNA high flow air filter and an SNS exhaust, which definitely increases the power. And it's one of the mods that I would be looking at if we were to buy another Continental GT, but we're probably not buying another Continental GT, are we?
No.
So, in its stock form, there's really no difference in power delivery between the Euro 5 version and the previous version of this bike. star of this bike is that over-engineered 650cc engine. It's an absolute peach, and the 47 brake horsepower it puts out is just perfect for everyday riding. I did joke at the start of this video that any ton-up boy would be proud to own one of these, but is it really going to go 100 miles an hour? Well, maybe, but I'm not sure that you'd really want to. I don't know about you, but the maximum speed limit anywhere near where I live is 110 kilometers an hour. This bike will cruise easily on a highway at 110, and I reckon anyone who thinks it's not enough power is kidding themselves. I've owned and I've ridden quite a few bikes with much higher horsepower than the Continental GT. But I've also said it's way more fun to ride a less powerful bike hard than to ride a more powerful bike at half its capability. But the great news with these bikes is there are some options to give you some more horsepower if you want to go down that path. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. Do you think this bike needs more power, or have Royal Enfield got it right with this bike? Another big plus for me is the looks. I, for one, love that tank design. It's got a real old school cafe racer look to it. I'm also a bit of a sucker for bikes with twin clocks, so that gets another tick from me. I've seen a few people say that the ride position gets uncomfortable after a while and puts pressure on your wrists, but it's not something that bothers me if you engage your core. Now, I'll be honest, I'm not entirely sure that I even have a core, but when I ride this bike, I've never had any issue with pressure on my wrists. When you do engage your core, the ride position is great. It's a little bit sporty and you do feel like you're a part of the bike. Both of the 650 twins handle really well, but I think that with the clip-ons and the rear sets, the Continental GT handles the best of the two. Those clip-ons make steering really precise, and it rides like it's on rails. The other thing that's great is the price. I really don't know how Royal Enfield can produce these bikes for the price that they sell them for. Firstly, those tyres, I'm really not a fan. The Pirellis that came on Amber's bike were better, but I've just put a set of Bridgestone BT46s on Amber's Continental GT, like the ones I have on another bike. These are really confidence-inspiring tyres in all road and weather conditions. They are also quite hard wearing. I think I got about 15,000 Ks out of my last set. I found the Seat tyres wanted to track down grooves in the road a little bit too much for my liking also. It's not worth ditching them straight away as they are adequate, but you may find yourself swapping them out sooner rather than later. The mirrors are a bit stalky, and I think this bike really screams out for bar end mirrors, and the Royal Enfield branded runs are really good, so maybe look at those if you're thinking of swapping them out. The grips do feel quite hard, and this is the same with the older version. I rode an Interceptor that had grip puppies fitted, and they certainly softened up the feel and took what little vibration there is away. The suspension is okay, but it's another component that could probably do with an upgrade. But keep in mind, these bikes are made to a certain price point. It's hard to say which other bikes the Continental GT is competing with. I've heard people say the Triumph Thruxton, but for me that's an unfair comparison. The Thruxton is a 1200cc bike with premium electronics and costs twice the price. The closest competitor that I can think of is also one that is no longer in production, and that's the Triumph Street Cup, which I think is a beautiful looking bike. It's a 900cc, so it's closer in engine size and horsepower, but it was also $3,000 more than the Continental GT when it was first released. But Triumph are no longer making them. I'm not sure why, but that says to me that Royal Enfield have got it pretty much bang on with the styling, engine size and price of the Continental GT. It's a great bike and the price is very appealing. It doesn't sell quite as well as the Interceptor, which is probably the better all-round bike, but as a second bike to take for a blast for a coffee, it has you covered. Also, in Australia, it's learner legal, so that will always make it a desirable bike in the second-hand market. But good luck finding one second-hand, as owners tend to hang on to them. There's a great video on YouTube by Freddie Dobbs. I'll put a link in the description so you can check it out. He talks about the depreciation of the Continental GT compared to some other bikes, and I was stunned how little these bikes have depreciated. I won't go over the stats here, but if you are interested, check out Freddie's video. No surprises here, it's a yes from me. We did a few rides on the Continental GT while I had it, and one of them was up to Katoomba. From where I live, Katoomba is about 100 k's or so, depending on which roads you take. This time we decided to do some highway riding to Richmond, then turn up through some twisty mountain road at Yarramundi. Then some back roads and highway onto Katoomba, stopping off to catch up with Dave at the Soul Side of Town Cafe. Now Dave claims to serve the best coffee for 1,000 miles, and they were pretty good, as were the toasties, but the star for me was Dave's homemade ice cream. It was absolutely to die for. Now the Blue Mountains and Katoomba make a great destination from Sydney. There's a lot of little towns to explore and some great roads. The area was devastated by bushfires a couple of years ago, but it's wonderful to see the land regenerate itself as the Aussie landscape tends to do. So a trip up to the Blue Mountains on the Continental GT was a great way to spend a day. If you do head up there for a ride, make sure you stop off at the On the Soul Side of Town Cafe and drop in for a coffee with Dave. So let me know what you think about the Royal Enfield Continental GT in the comments below. Would you buy one? And if so, would you keep it stock or would you make some mods? If you like this video, please give us a like and subscribe to the channel. Until next time, stay safe and enjoy your next pie run.